you finish your workup, and now you go your first deployment to Vietnam. Was this Kilo Platoon?
Yeah, Kilo.
Oh, Kilo Platoon, Vietnam. And you're saying you were doing the first podcast. You were saying that you did dartboard operations, which was have a guy huck a dart because you guys didn't have good intel. You didn't have good support.
No, we were at a place called New Nam Can, and it was a Vietnamese fire base out in BF Egypt. And then we were here. Then down here, you had the river and sea float where our other squad was. But our squad got put up here. That was the one.
So just one squad out there by itself?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
With the Vietnamese guys. They had a fire base there.
Okay. And there was not good intel, so you basically would throw a dart at the dartboard and then do what? Go do an ambush there? Go set an ambush, basically?
Just go out and look, set up ambush or something, see what was out there.
Go patrol?
Yeah.
And you also were inserting primarily on sandpans during that deployment?
Pretty much. Otherwise, we about 3 times we walked out of the fire base and walked back in, and that doesn't give you warm and fuzzy, because change guards and stuff, and you come back in, and all they see is moving out there, and maybe they don't know what the bona fide is for you coming back in and shit, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we didn't do a lot up at New Nam Can because of that. And we only had sampans. We didn't have any of our boats up there, none of the mediums or lights or anything. So after we'd been up there for about a month, I think, month and a half, then they brought us, maybe 2 months, and then they brought us down to sea float.
Okay.
And then we started doing some good ops down there.
The sampans, how big is a sampan? How many guys could you fit in it?
Oh, 4 or 5.
So you take 2
heavy,
sampans?
Because we were heavy. Yeah,
Right.
we'd take 2 sampans.
Take 2 sampans.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten into a sampan?
No.
They're not a real stable boat. Vietnamese are good in them because they're small, but you get about 5 big Americans in there, and it's you have to be real careful.
And are you rowing it?
No. It's got a little motor on the back, yeah.
The little like
we usually had a
stick
VN
mower.
with us that could put along with us. Wasn't just ourselves, no.
And then someone would stay with the boats.
Yeah.
The VN would stay with the boats.
Or they'd leave and come back and get us,
But you didn't start working a lot until you got to sea float.
Yeah.
And then what kind of ops were you doing on a sea float?
Same thing, ambushes and going up river, setting up ambushes. And that's when I told you, I think, I get a little bit confused sometimes on PBRs and Swifts. I'm thinking they were PBRs that were down at sea float with us. But we'd go up on the PBR and have a Boston whaler with us. And a Boston whaler could probably hold 4 or 5 guys, plus the guy on the front with a 60 and the guy driving it. Well, the way we'd work that is we had the whole platoon there. One platoon would be going to do something. Well, 2 guys out of the one squad would go up, and 2 guys from the other squad luckily got to pick to be the driver sitting up on the thing driving the Boston whaler, and the other guy in the 60s. Why everybody else was just looking over the edge like this and didn't get there again. You didn't get real excited when you were chosen to be the coxswain.
How often would you guys make enemy contact when you guys go out on ambush? Because that had to be kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack, right?
Yeah, we got some contact. That was the one down at the Square Bay I told you about when we hit when I wasn't on that up when they hit that junk, and then all them other flares started popping up, and they realized. And a few other times we got in some crap. But that particular that platoon and that deployment we didn't do an awful lot. We went out a lot.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but we didn't get in a lot of firefights and stuff. It was my second platoon where we kicked ass and took names.
And it sounds like, this is sort of classic, and you and I were talking about this earlier today. If you don't have good intel,
that's it.
You can go out on the ambush all day long.
Even down in the sea float, we didn't have that good of intel, and like we didn't have a chief of a platoon. We had an LPO, and no mention of any names, but he wasn't real good. But we had this other guy, that Chief Corpsman, I told you, not chief, but that Corpsman. Mm-hmm. It was a first class, and he kind of took over everything. He had been with the Marines twice to Vietnam, so he was a good hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Had his shit together, was smart, and just a couple funny things happened. It was down at Seafloor, I told you, where that pile of clothes moved and stuck his head up. Oh, you looking for me? We thought we'd lost him, And that was like month, this chopper comes in and lands. 2 of them did. One was pretty shot up, and door gunner had been hit. So he said, hey, anybody want to be a door gunner? We got to go back and pick up some other guys. Well, of course, as a corpsman, yeah, I'll go. So he's in UDTs. He throws a flak jacket on a helmet and takes the door gunner position. You know, they take off, and about a half hour later, the chopper comes back in and lands, shot up even more. Harry gets off he gets off the boat, throws his helmet down, takes his flat jacket off. Fuck, I'll never do that again.
Yeah, those when we had this guy Colonel Reeder on, who's a pilot in Vietnam. He flew Cobras in Vietnam in his second deployment. But those guys, those pilots in Vietnam, the helicopter pilots in Vietnam, they knew they were going to take rounds. They just went in anyways. Yeah. They were badass.
That was the same as our Seawolves and the Black Ponies, but the Seawolves especially were just unbelievable guys. You know, just they were just badass dudes, man. They and I told you that one story, didn't I, about that one chopper?
No,
so
I don't think so.
Kind of pinned down behind this rice dike, and we're getting some pretty heavy fire from the tree lines. So we call in for close air support, and it's the Seawolves, you know. So we're getting up, shooting, getting back down my 60, and we're getting kind of low on ammo too. Except the Seawolves, we always had ammo staged on the Seawolves, so they could kick it off to us when they came in. So the Seawolves were coming in, we could hear the rotors, whoa, 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 whoa. Well, when the Seawolves weren't doing, they were the greatest. When they weren't doing close air support, they'd do PSYOPs. They had these great big speakers. So we hear this one Seawolf coming in behind us, and we're still shooting everything. All of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, I swear to God, you hear this, "We are the gods of hellfire, and we bring you fire." And the fucking rockets went over our head and hit the tree line, and they either had a 50 or a minigun on one side of the Seawolf. And that Seawolf turned like that and just hosed it down. I think that one had a minigun on it. Then right behind him came another Seawolf. But when we heard that, everybody just stopped shooting, and we looked back up like, what the fuck?
Oh, dude.
It was unreal.
And that, so just
and then
so
they
everyone
didn't really suppress the fire, so then the Black Pony, they had 2.7 rockets, and Black Ponies came in with the 5-inch zoomies. Mm-hmm. And when they hit the tree line, it was blowing shit clear up over our head. Dang. And that pretty much squelched it. It was done, and we got out of there. The Sea Lords came in, the regular Hueys that picked us up and got us out of there. That was a good op, though.
The Seawolves were the Navy pilots, Navy Vietnam pilots, gunships that came and supported.
They weren't like Cobras. They were regular Hueys
they were
set
regular,
up with rocket pods. And I think like the Black Ponies had the 20 millimeter guns in the front, and then the 5-inch zoomies. They had just the rocket pods, but they had a 50 on one side. Mm-hmm. And or a minigun on the other side. And
the most important thing that they had, from everything I've heard and from what you're telling me right now, is they had balls.
Oh yeah, they were good.
They would just come in and...
We got drunk one night at our bar, and Seawolves are on the Army side. That's where they had their thing. So we figured, hell, we'll go over and visit them and have them drink with us. So we jumps in our 6x and headed out. They had the Army base here and the Navy base here. We lived on the Vietnamese side and had our own barracks all fortified. It was perfect. So anyway, we got in our 6x and was heading out. Went over to where the Seawolf guys were. We wanted them to drink with us, you know. And we had our 60s with us and stuff. You never knew, you know. So we get over there and go walking in their compound and everything. All right, boys, get up. Let's drink. Well, see, we made them drink with us naked because we were all naked. So we're all sitting there drinking beers, naked.
Nakedness, M60s, and booze. Yeah. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So you guys had way more fun in Vietnam than we had in Iraq.
We had a good time. I'm telling you, we weren't. We'd get back from an op, do our debrief, clean our weapons, and go up and get shit faced. You know.
That's another thing. Colonel Reeder said the same thing. He goes, yeah, you know, we'd go out, we'd fly, we'd get shot up, we'd have to come back and like put the birds in for repair, and then we'd get drunk.
Yeah.
And then we'd go, and he goes, I don't know. And he really like looked at me and he said, I don't know how you guys did it without alcohol, basically, is what he was saying.
Yeah. Well, I was went to Desert Storm. We were over there 9 months and no alcohol and stuff. It was okay, but I mean, to me, it was just like, this isn't my war, you know. we really didn't do that much. And, the guy did recons and stuff up from Mashab, and we did that one deception op when we inserted the Kuwaitis and shit. And that's outside of that, they never really got into firefights and shit,
Yeah. Now that op with the Seawolves, I'm assuming that was on your second deployment to Vietnam.
Second, that was
because your first deployment, you did what you did, but it wasn't as fruitful.
No, to me, tell you the honest to God truth, coming out of EDT and the SEAL team, I was ready to hit the deck running, and it just seemed like we didn't hit the deck running over there, and just didn't have the intel. I don't think our, as you were saying, leadership was all that good and stuff. I mean, we had one guy, the LT, they were doing some shit down in Seafloat, but up where we were, we just didn't, you couldn't. It just wasn't that much you could do. You would go out and look, try to find shit and everything, but we didn't have actionable intel that we could react on, which you found out later, that's what you have to have.
Sometimes, too, I think people spread their forces too thin. Like, if you think about it, you just take a squad and put them out there in the middle of nowhere with no intel support, and then you got another squad in some other area with no intel support. You might as well bring them together, put a couple of guys to gather intel, and you start making something happen.
Well, the platoon before us that was there and stuff, that was platoon. Those guys got in a lot of shit, you know what I mean? That's when he got his Medal of Honor and stuff like that. And actually, my second trip over had been in that platoon, you know what I mean, and he told me some stories about it. They got in a lot of shit, but we were stuck at New Namcan and just didn't, right, you could see the U Minh Forest, which was at the very southern part of Vietnam, and it's just triple canopy, we were away from that a little bit, But this old Vietnamese guy there, he had tattoos all over, and I guess he had fought with the French against the Viet Minh, which was the bad guys fighting the French, same as VC. And we were, through an interpreter, we were talking to him, and goddamn U Minh Forest, that's he says, a whole company of French 4 Legion paratroopers jumped in there, and none of them ever came back out, and we're going, Plus, that's when I was telling you on my last podcast I did, that's where we landed, and we're just starting to put our shit away, and this Loach lands, and it's a crew advisor, and a good friend of mine, real good friend of mine now, and then when that Loach took off, we got the ship mortared out of it for about 2 hours, and that's when we told him, don't ever come here again,
Yeah. So now when you get back, you do another workup, and... Well, actually, you got out for a little bit. Yeah. You come back in. You decide, that's like when I went to college. I had to get once I got my commission, I had to go to college. And people would say, oh, what'd you learn in college? And I'd say, I learned in college, never, ever, ever, ever get out of the teams, ever. That's what
same
I learned
with
in
me,
college.
It's the same deal.
Yeah, so you get out for a year or something, and you come back in and get in your second platoon, getting ready to go to Vietnam. Was that November platoon?
Yes.
Okay.
He just passed. And what a great guy.
Was he the platoon commander?
Yes, he was the LT.
Commander?
Dai Wee, LT. He's a great guy, just a great guy, man. And he just passed here about 3 weeks ago. Okay. We went up in Rosecrans and they buried him and stuff. But he was a great guy, man.
And that workup, did much change between your first workup at SEAL Team and your second one?
Actually, when I got out, came back in, I went back through cadre.
Oh, okay.
Just to, kind of get yourself refreshed. It had been about a year I was out, you know what I mean? And that's the way you did it in Team 1. Mm-hmm. If you were gone way over 6 months or something, you went back through cadre. Just even the guys that came from the East Coast, just so they'd know how we worked and stuff, which was good. While I was going through cadre, Jerry Fletcher was out there with his platoon, and I got to know him, and I knew some of the other guys in the platoon, so... As soon as I got out of cadre, they lost a guy in their platoon, and lucky enough, I was good enough to get into it. So I didn't go through the whole workup with November platoon. I just got in it, and that's what I was telling you was down at the Ream Field. They used to have a firing range down there, and I was figuring out, man, I might shoot something else. And that's when I that's when I picked up a 60. Me and this guy, we shot at this creosote log. Pieces flew off the creosote log, and we set it on fire. And I remember looking at me, and it was like, we're in. So that was it.
Yeah, the 60's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Oh, it's a great thing.
So this next deployment, and you mentioned this on the first podcast when you came on about the orders that you got from. Was it from Mac V SOG? Is that who you're getting orders from?
Yeah, NAV-4V.
NAV-4V. Okay,
yeah,
so,
and we landed in Saigon, and our LT, we went up to see where we're going to go, what area we're going to work in, what province, and he went up there and they told him, well, you got the Vinh Long province, which is where Dong Tam is and stuff, and he said his orders were to pacify it. Dang. That was it. And we brought it. He picked up a whole bunch of money so we could pay our Kit Carson scouts and stuff like that. And we went to Dong Tam. Well, we stopped at Ben Luck first. It's about 40 miles away from Dong Tam. And there was another platoon there, Gary Gallagher's platoon. And we shows up in our 6x and stuff. And we're kind of rugged looking because we'd been in Saigon for 3 days and having a good time and shit. And comes walking out, and he looks at us. He goes, "God damn, you guys look like you've been here 6 months already." We was a little bedraggled and shit. Then we went to Dong Tam, but we used to go back and forth. Was in that platoon. George Anger, they just had some great guys.
Yeah,
and they were, like I said, they were our sister platoon. So we'd go and see each other once in a while.
Would the sister platoons deploy at the same time?
No,
together.
They had been over there for 3 months.
Okay, so was it like a overlap of 3 months between the platoons?
Some of them, yeah. The two of them may go at the same time. But usually when you got there was another platoon somewhere around you, whether East Coast or West Coast. Of course, East Coast had 2 platoons over there. So Vung Tau, I'm thinking it was Vung Tau. God, I'm still trying to think of that name. It's right on a river, and that's where the East Coast platoon was. Na Bay. That's where it was, Na Bay.
And that's where the East Coast platoon was?
Yeah, they had a platoon there, and they had a platoon in Mito. And that was their 2 platoons. And then we took over, when they left, we took over the one at Mito, but we moved to Dong Tam because we didn't want to be right in the middle of a city, or a big town or city. Yeah. So we moved down to Dong Tam, and then the Navy base didn't want us. The Army base didn't want us, so they put us in the Vietnamese base. That split them. So
there you go.
Yeah, and that was good. We had our boats right there. Everything was perfect. We go to the Army base to test fire weapons and shit, and they were doing that all the time anyway, so it wasn't. It's another thing. I wondered how in Mito, how they test fired their weapons and shit. Anyway,